2.
Hi, I'm Diana Montford, the world's first transgender television journalist, born male, became female. This is part 2 of the Triad, a show devoted to LGBT concerns, and we are going to discuss how to survive in a Trump presidency if one is LGBTQ and particularly if one is transgender. The other members of the Triad are in alphabetical order: well-known feminist and transgender activist, Miss Catherine Platine, and attorney and one of the first transgender politicians in New York, Ms. Joanne Principali. So, ladies, where were we? How, what
We
do,
were running, screaming for our lives. Oh, panic, panic.
yeah, the sky's falling, yeah.
All
Way to
right.
be Chicken Little when Trump is in office, yeah.
Okay,
So,
well,
yes.
Joanne has a couple of things that she wants to discuss, and I have a couple more things I want to discuss. They're kind of related. I wanted to talk more about the go bag thing,
Mhm.
and that was going to lead into what she was going to talk about. How do you go get a visa uh, or apply for asylum in
All right,
wherever?
let's talk about the applying for asylum first,
Okay.
because go bags they can find out about in many sources, but Joanne
Okay.
would be an expert on how trans people can apply for visas or asylum. Joanne,
Okay.
how do we do this and where do
Okay.
we go?
First, first things first. I'll talk first about going to Canada because people in New York are more likely to be able to get to Canada than anywhere else. Uh, Now, if you have a passport, you can certainly take an airplane and go anywhere if you can get on the airplane. But if you don't have a passport and you do have a real ID license or an enhanced driver's license or a enhanced non-driver ID or a real ID, driver ID, non-driver ID, you can use these things uh, to get across the border into Canada on land. So you can be taking a bus or a train, like a train to Montreal or something like that from New York. You could be driving across the border. Um, and presenting your driver's license gets you in, or your non-driver ID that's an enhanced or real ID. Once you're there, at the border, you would need to fill in a form to apply for asylum. Now, what you would need to have in your go bag for this is, for trans people in particular, a copy of your medical records, uh, a copy of your the papers for your identity, like your name change order, and other things that are related to that, and a document, a statement that shows that what kind of threat you are under for persecution, and that could early on just come from statements that were made during the campaign or from statements in those ads that showed their intent to persecute us. With that, uh, that should allow us into Canada. Now, they will let you in, and then they'll have a hearing. The hearing may take many months because we are not pre-approved immigrants, like people like from Syria or something like that, they've agreed to take in because of what's going on in their countries. If we're not the kind that are pre-approved, then we get no services. We have to be able to maintain ourselves on our own while we await our hearing.
It's
Um,
those of us on SSI or Social Security, would we still be able to get it in Canada?
no, not no. If you're in a situation like that, you need to be relying on someone else to make sure you get fed.
Would there
Well,
be organizations in Canada, gay centers
Yes,
and all that
possibly.
would help us?
That is something we would have to look into, but yes, that's a possibility. The thing is that Canada as a destination is kind of like going from a fire into a frying pan. It's a little better, but there are parts of Canada that are not as friendly as they could be. Uh, and at the same time, being there under its current government is still better than being here
okay,
under a
don't go
Trump
to
government.
Quebec. Okay,
Yeah,
do not
yeah, I know.
go to Quebec.
You may take
Um,
the train to Montreal, but you want to get out of there.
Montreal is where you want to. It is not the best place to go. I'm sorry. You want to go to Toronto probably. I actually know people in Toronto, so I
Yeah,
might even.
I have
I'm
friends
not
in
sure.
Nova Scotia. That's a good place. I know that climate-wise, one of the best places is Vancouver. Unfortunately, it's in British Columbia, which is one of the less friendly provinces.
Yeah. So do your homework. In other words, and do it now. Um, and if you're online a lot and you're in contact with people in Canada, be in contact with people in Canada,
Hmm.
so that you can develop a secondary support system up there if you need it.
What
Me, I'm
happens if
here.
someone is very poor, has no money? A lot of these ladies, a lot of our trans sisters, are living in the gray economy. They have no, you know, no formal way of making a living. Let's say they are sex workers or whatever.
They're
How
still going to be able to do it.
how can they save themselves? How can they support themselves once they are in Canada? Of course, the answer seems to be self-evident, but let's
The
say,
ele-
they don't want to be sex workers in Canada. How do
okay,
you support yourself?
25 years ago, I had contact with a number of so-called street girls from New York City. Okay, and they seem to have no trouble traveling all over the freaking world.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I don't know how they pulled it off, but they were pulling it off left and right. And I did help a couple of them get into Canada back then. Um, so the answer is, they're going to have to do whatever they're going to do. I'm going to stay here, and
Well,
they're
now
going to
let me
take.
ask you this. Suppose you're a penniless senior citizen trans person. How do you survive in Canada or any other country when you have no money?
I'm a cripple. I depend on Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. And what do you think they're going to do to Medicare and Medicaid? I guess who's be in charge of that? Mr. Worm in the
Elon,
Brain is going to be in charge of that.
yeah, and to the extent that he isn't, it'll be Elon. I want all the money for myself, Musk.
Right,
So,
exactly.
all right, now, all right, fine. We get to Canada. Now what? Now we're in Canada. Now
Okay.
what?
The thing is that if we hang together, we won't hang separately. So we'll just
Yeah,
have to make sure that we do it with others. And if to the extent that some people have things that we would end up needing to share uh, with those who don't, so that we can
potentially,
all get through it together.
But you'd have to be
potentially.
a billionaire to support yourself in Canada for, say, a year without being able to work, and if you're a senior, you
Well,
couldn't get a job anyway.
well, the thing is, one of the among other things that in addition to just applying for asylum, there are types of things that people with wealth can do if they have. We're talking about people with wealth at this point. Um, if you have something like between 200 and $400,000, you can start a business in Canada, and that would put you on the path towards citizenship. And if you
How many
start a
people
business,
have
again,
200 to, come on.
just saying, if someone does that, they can conceivably hire some other people who don't as part of that business.
Yeah, and Diane, Diana, you and I are both, children of the '60s. Okay, we survived back then. I mean, if you had to eat out of a dumpster, you could survive.
I didn't do that. My parents were alive then. I didn't eat out of dumpsters. Although
Okay,
my
all right.
mother's cooking was, it wasn't out of a dumpster at least.
My
Also,
apartment was a crash pad, but I spent
we
a
were
summer.
young then and it was different, and everyone pulled, we had generational siblings. Every one of our generation, they were instant friends, remember? It's
Yeah, but
different.
there were old folk among us back then too that we were
Yeah, they were
supporting.
like 26, 27 to our 19 or something. Come on.
No. There was old people in the movement back then. Um, maybe somebody might want to hear our voices. I don't know, but what I was going to suggest is the gig economy. You can go out and get day jobs. Okay. If you have to do that, you can do that. If you're young enough and
Yeah, but if
able.
you're in a foreign country, you don't have work papers. So that's very difficult. Look at the migrants who come here. They're not allowed to work for 6 months.
But they
So,
Yeah,
end up
I mean, do you
the
really
gray
want to
market.
spend your declining years selling candy in the Canadian subways? You know?
There's other gray market stuff that can be done.
I started my transition as a sample lady at Walmart um, because that was all I could get
As a
after my
what? What did you do?
a sample lady handing out samples at Walmart, which was
Oh,
by
I've done that. Yeah. But I'm an actress. Actors do that crap too. I once had to
oh,
dress as a cigarette girl in the 80s and hand out little packs with 5 Winston cigarettes in them at the um, at the Kmart throughout New Jersey in
yeah, I
Kmart.
was doing the same
It
thing with
was so
men.
embarrassing. Oh my God. It was ridiculous.
I want to
Hey,
see
look,
pictures.
we've been
Awful.
there. We did it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd have to hand out grandma's cookies or whatever at this point, but okay. First of all, if you're traveling to Canada and you're poor, you probably have a vehicle. So one of the things you should be doing right now is getting the vehicle in a position where you can camp in it for a while.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's what the go bag is for. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about. Is
Yeah,
what are the
good.
bare minimum things you need in order to pull that off? And that I have I'm not going to show it to you, but I have my own go bag. Don't intend to go anywhere at this point, but um, I have things in it like the life straw that I talked about in the last hour, and also a small folding rocket stove, and some sort of a fire starter, some paracord. Watch that Alone series, and you'll get a good idea of a few of the basic things you ought to have. A small hatchet, um, and believe it or not, if you can get your hands on an old-fashioned Boy Scout mess kit, you won't believe how handy that will be.
Yeah, but
For
okay, let's say now, you're not going to live out in the forest. You're going to go to a city, which is where they process people. So now you're in a city. You have no place to live. You have no money. You don't know where your next meal is coming from. What are you going to do?
That's where the
It's almost
camper
better
van
to
comes.
stay here and
That's
be
why
killed.
that's why you set up to be able to camp in your car. People are doing it right now because they have no income.
I
Okay.
know, and isn't that a disgrace? God bless America.
Although Canada's a little colder, and many parts of Canada are a little colder than here.
Yeah, so I would strongly suggest you get some space blankets. Space blankets, by the way, have another use, and that is if you buy one that has the camo on one side and the shiny on the other,
Mm.
and you can get them as like a tarp. Nobody can see you with infrared technology if you're underneath one of those.
Wouldn't it be
Um,
easier just to have a revolution in this country and get rid of this crazy bastard?
Well, that would bring us to the other thing I wanted to talk about, which is the whole idea of conditional secession, and how that would work as a kind of a poison pill to try to deter the federal government from harming people in our state or in whatever other state would do.
Well, have you started doing it? You're an attorney. Can you start doing it?
Yeah. Okay. The process involves getting an amendment to the state constitution to permit to set up a conditional secession. Now, the thing is, in order to amend the state constitution in New York, it has to pass 2 sessions of the state legislature and then be voted on by the people. So, in order to do it in New York, you have to have the governor call a special session of the legislature now, have it voted on in this session. Then, in January, or actually it would take they have to have, I think, 90 days, so it wouldn't be until March. By March, they would be able to vote on it in a second session and then set it up for a vote of the people. That could be as early as, I think, possibly June. They could have a special election in June for the vote, and once that happens, it would not be effective until January 1st of the following year. But as soon as, so that would be 2026. So we'd have to go through a whole year of hoping that Trump only focuses elsewhere before this could even be effective in New York. But it's one way of doing it, and any future attempts to go after people in New York could be deemed to be an act of aggression against the state of New York, which would dissolve the bonds of the federal government so that we would no longer be part of the United States.
How likely is that to happen, though, really, realistically?
The likelihood, stranger things have happened. On the other hand, I did not expect it to take 18 years to get gender passed. So it's a crapshoot. But if we don't do it, it can't happen at all.
Exactly. We need to, and believe me, this is a lot better than the alternative, which is us hiding in the woods. And I'm too old to do that anymore. Okay. And taking out maggots one at a time. That's just not practical.
Yeah, and I'm a city gal. I would have no idea how to survive in the woods.
Well, I have an idea how to survive in the woods, but I'm sorry, I'm 75 years old with a bad heart. I don't think I would anyway anymore. My surviving in the woods days are pretty much over. Although I can show you how to do it if they come up here.
Now, is the world blind? Will no one help us?
The problem with the world is that the world, at this point, with the United States slipping onto the wrong side of things, the 71% of the world's population is under authoritarian governments that are run by people who are crony capitalists, among other things, or are influenced by a particular religious faith or whatever. So 71% of the world's population, we're running out of people who live in free societies.
Yeah, we're the last of it. Now we're the enemy. Now we're going to be the world's problem, because as the last remaining superpower, if we go full Trump, first of all, that kiss Ukraine goodbye, and we're going to be enabling Bibi to do what he wants to do there, and which is he wants to make sure there's not a single Palestinian left in Gaza alive, because that's why he's been doing what he's been doing, is he wants the final solution. And let's not even go into the irony of that.
Yeah. And did anybody ever see Trump's original peace plan for Israel and Palestine, where what's left of the West Bank that it would be in Palestinian hands is about a quarter of the West Bank and nothing along the Jordan River at all? Basically, anything related to water, Israel wants, so that they can farm or whatever and have sole access to the Jordan River between them and the Jordan, but Palestinians would get nothing. As it is, Palestinians who are farmers aren't even allowed to collect rainwater.
And you have to understand that Netanyahu and Trump are basically in the
I don't give a flying fuck about that. We have to worry about ourselves here now.
Well,
Let's get off topic.
But it's all connected, though. It's all connected. It's all connected. Because Putin, Netanyahu, Trump they're going to be a triumvirate of idiots that are basically doing in what's left of democracy in the world.
Basically, what you're saying is that there is nowhere to escape to.
Well, right. Do you want to go to Spain right now? That's really not a great idea. They just had a huge weather emergency there.
That's Barcelona, and that is a seaport, and they're always having weather emergencies. But
Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, they are among the best places to be right now. New Zealand, may not be a bad place to go. It's also far away from everywhere else in the case of a
Well,
nuclear
yes,
war.
but that's where all the millionaires are going to go when they blow up the rest of the world.
Yeah, well, that makes it safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's precisely why it's safe. Um, uh, New Zealand is safer than Australia. I have
Yes.
friends in Australia. They don't seem to be doing all that wonderful there.
No.
So,
For now, Canada is a place to go. That's slightly better than here. And after that, I had been thinking of the Netherlands and what's happening in the Netherlands. Just yesterday, there was assaults on Jewish people in Amsterdam.
now me,
This is
I'm gonna stay here. Um, you know, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
I'm
and
gonna
I
be
and
the
I'm with you on that. I may have want to have a go bag ready just in case the SWAT team is on its way and I get told about it and I can zip out. But other than that, I plan on staying, trying to work on this secession thing, and
I plan to
doing
stay.
whatever I can, protest songs, anything that I can do,
You
I
realize, of course,
will
that
do.
Trump will probably cancel our show, this show,
well,
because the
yeah,
trans.
naturally. But I have a radio station. It
There
doesn't
you
go very
go.
far, but I have a radio station,
As
and
long as
that
you still have a license.
it
Uh,
doesn't matter whether I have a license or not. I have the equipment.
Okay, there we go. Yeah,
yeah.
pump up that power to 50,000 watts. Get yourself a clear
Actually,
There's
channel.
all.
I can turn my transmitter up to about 5 times the power I'm transmitting at now. And yes, all of a sudden I can get out a lot further.
Yeah,
And if I
but
had a bunch of young trans people here to help me, I've got an antenna that could be put together that would be 3 times the height of the one I've got at the moment, and that would reach even further.
yeah,
So
ever realize most pirate radio stations are like offshore?
yeah, well, I'm inshore. Uh,
I know.
oh, hey, look, at that point I'd be an outlaw anyway.
Yeah, well, you might want
We
maybe
would all be
relo-
outlaws.
may
Yes.
relocate to a boat in Lake Ontario. Try to stay at the international border.
Okay,
I have
well,
so little interest at my age in starting over anywhere else. And God, when will people grow up and stop being so evil and crazy?
I'm going to petition the UN if it comes down to that in order to be a city state, and see if I can get recognized as an independent city state. Um, all 3 acres, 3.5 acres we have here. Uh,
Oh, that's
so
that's that's kind of a Don Quixote type thing, but go for it.
Bring
That's
well,
some.
that's that's
the
no, that's no crazier than me doing this secession bill.
Okay,
exactly.
we have 5 minutes left. Let's
All right.
address our wonderful friends out there. Let's start with Kathy. 1 minute. What would you say to people out there who are quaking in their boots? And what do we do?
First of all, I'm living in a religious convent that is beyond trans friendly. Um, and I'm basically offering sanctuary to those that need it. Um,
How can people
and
contact you?
pardon?
How can
Oh,
people contact you?
best way would be through Facebook. Message me on Facebook, Catherine Platine, CathrynPlatine. I'm there by my name. You can email me at Catherine@gallae.com, GALLAE.com. And that's again, Catherine, CATHRYN, the weird Welsh spelling. Um, Joanne?
Yeah. Well, for me, my advice is if you're in a red state, get out now to a state that has done whatever they can to protect people, and that would be like a state like New York or California or Connecticut or any of the blue states. Um, if you are already in a blue state, work towards something like this proposed secession bill that I'm going to start working on, and also prepare that go bag, because you don't know what kind of warning you're going to get if they are going to come, if they are actually going to come for us when they do. If you get any warning, it's time to bug out and go to Canada.
Make sure you have freeze-dried food in that go bag,
There you go.
and you're carrying some water with you.
And how to contact me. Again, contact me at Facebook, Joanne Marie Prinzavali, or my email is Joanne, no E, that's JOANNM as in Marie, P as in Prinzavali, @outlook.com.
Okay.
And I would also advise you to get a small CB walkie-talkie, 40 channel.
Yeah,
That could be
and a Rolls
valuable.
Royce while you're at it. People don't have any money. How are they going to get all this?
Honey, you can buy one of those for 15, 20 bucks. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
It's
And
okay.
you can buy a walkie-talkie set, and you can give one to your friend, and then you can both have them. But they basically work on the same 40 channels as the CB radios, and that gives you some communication. I think that's going to wind up being used if things come down to it. So it's a relatively short distance communication, but it's still something usable.
Okay, great. Anyway, this has been the Triad, an offshoot of the Diana Montford show. As you know, the other members are Catherine Platine and Joanne Prinzavali. I'm Diana Montford. I love you. Look, if we hang together, by hang, I mean if we coalesce, if we are or stick together, everything will be better than if we don't. I hesitate to say all right, but everything will be fine. Pray. That's all I can say.
Well, I
Anyway,
believe
I love you a lot, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.